So Ryan, you've got an interesting story. You first came to Kelowna, I think it was 2002, and you left for a while, and you've been back for 7 years. So tell us a little bit about the story. Why did you first come here in 2002? Why did you leave? And why did you come back?
Sure. I think I first came here in 2002 because I got lucky. My dad immigrated here, Kelowna of all places, and I just kind of walked in, doors wide open. And Kelowna was my sort of first taste of Canada. Mm-hmm. And I just remember it being, oh wow, this is really nice. This is awesome. And then I didn't realize that the rest of Canada wasn't quite the same.
This is so true.
Yeah.
So, but you were born and you grew up in Africa. Mm-hmm. And tell us what that was like. Because I know my daughter went on safari recently in Kenya. I've never been to Africa, but I think for a lot of Canadians, it's kind of a fascinating, mysterious place. So what was it like growing up there?
It's kind of an interesting place. I think it gives me good perspective because there's a lot of things that everybody in North America takes very easily for granted. For example, access to food, access to gas for your car, being able to finance a car. I remember when I first came to Canada, I bought a car and I was able to finance it, and that was like mind-numbing for me, just because that was, I grew up in Zimbabwe, and those types of things were, you needed to have basically 90% cash to buy a car, so it wasn't you couldn't just go finance one. And
wow.
So that was kind of like my this is kind of easy, when I first got here, and then. But yeah, I always tell my kids, like, eat all the food on your plate, and just like there's other kids out there that are starving, so please don't waste that, right? And so I think it gives me a little bit of an interesting perspective, having been from there, and I was born there. I was born and raised, and my parents are both born and raised in that part of the world too. So. I didn't live an expat life, but I lived a privileged life in Zimbabwe. Like, it was a great place to live. Yeah. So,
food, you said it was kind of difficult or challenging to get food and fuel for the car. Like, was it just that it's not available? Like you said you had a privileged upbringing.
Yeah.
So was it really a challenge for you to find gasoline for the car?
Yeah, because the economy completely collapsed.
Oh.
And so that country today, I left there actually 20 years ago was when I kind of left, and I haven't been back in 15 or 16 years. But that country today is a completely different place than the Zimbabwe that I grew up in. So it's, that's what bad policies do to your country, and that's how you turn, lucrative, the potential, like a country with a lot of potential, growing economy. That's what you can do to it if greed and poor policy takes over.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. So like the country literally would run out of gas, and you would have to go and wait in a line for a day. To take your barbecue, take some snacks with you, and wait in line for gas.
Yeah.
So and then maybe when you get there, they're all out.
Yeah.
So that was just sort of challenging times for everyone who lived there, and so my parents left kind of just before things got really bad. But Zimbabwe holds the record for a lot of things, like world record inflation. Right, like just Google Zimbabwe currency, and it's how not to manage your currency.
Yeah, it's like you got millions of dollars to buy or
Right.
millions of whatever to buy
Right.
a loaf of bread. And
Yeah, I
those-
know, but that all changed over a period of 10 years.
Wow.
Because it used to be, a loaf of bread was like a few bucks.
Yeah.
But then over the period of 5-10 years, it turned into millions, right?
Is that the reason you decided to leave?
No, that
You and your
was,
family?
that was just kind of a big part of it.
Yeah.
I actually, no, I grew up there thinking that after I was done college in the States that, you just kind of grow up with this intuition that you're not going to go back there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never, you don't see yourself having a job, living in that country.
Yeah.
You just kind of don't grow up with that hope, but you see it, where I went to the States. And so fortunately for me, my dad moved to Kelowna.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to kind of easily immigrate here.
Yeah, that's nice. Your English is perfect. Did you speak English at home in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, that's the only language that I speak.
Okay.
Fluently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess enough people in Zimbabwe speak English, so...
It's pretty much Zimbabwe's...
was it a British colony?
Yes, it was. It used to be called Rhodesia, so it was an English colony, and so the main language there for business is English, and I think it probably still is.
Yeah.
So, most people...
one of the tragedies of countries like this that have economic collapse is the best and the brightest minds tend to leave because they can't do anything.
Right.
And so it becomes a downward spiral. So the most intelligent people and people who could actually improve the country tend to want to get out because if it becomes an economic disaster, right? Yeah. So Kelowna in 2002, and then why did you leave a few years later?
Oh, I actually do love Kelowna a lot, and I talked about this a little while ago. I left because the sentiment in 2002 was there's no jobs here. Mm-hmm. This place is small, kind of sucks. If you want a job, go to Calgary, right? So you're just kind of like, oh, okay. And then he's like, okay, fine. But, not having been to Calgary, not having been to, really knowing just how awesome Kelowna is, I was like, cool, I'll go to Calgary. And then you arrive I think I arrived there in the fall. And then, I was driving like a Chevrolet soft top tracker to work at 6:30 in the morning in the middle of February. And I was like, it's kind of cold around here. So
really cold.
It's Canada, but it's a very different climate.
Yeah.
So that was, but that's why I left. So anyone I talk to these days, it's a different sentiment around here now. Yeah. And that's only 15 years later.
Yeah, definitely. First time I came was 2004, and it was a little bit sleepy. The real estate market started to take off, and I think they had a boom like 2004 to 2007, and then things kind of collapsed. Got overbuilt. I know that we were still selling developer units at the Waterscapes project into 2012, 2013, when the last units finally got sold.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's much more sophisticated. When I came here in 2004, they were building the bridge. So to get to West Kelowna, you had to go on a drawbridge, which was really time consuming. I was helping a friend move, and she rented a storage locker on the west side, and it took hours and hours. We'd wait for the drawbridge. I mean, it was crazy. And now you just drive over, right?
Yeah, I remember that bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's better now.
Yeah, definitely better.
Yeah.
So you've done so many fascinating things. You told me a little bit about it when you first came here. Yeah. You were a coach, got into sports, semi-pro, I think you said. Yeah.
Pretty much.
So tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into sports?
Yeah. I played a lot of sports in Zimbabwe growing up just because it's 25 degrees Celsius basically all year round. Sports are cheap. And it's it's a lot more part of the school system, I think, right? So, but I really took to tennis, and I specialized in tennis, and I just pretty much played tennis every day. After about like 11 years old, And my dream was to be a tennis professional, and so I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to a university in the United States, and when I played there for 4 years. So when I got done in the U.S. and ended up in Kelowna, it was pretty easy for me to get a job teaching tennis.
Yep.
So I got into teaching tennis, and then I read this book one day. It was called something to do with the similarities between business and sports, and the psychology kind of around that. And it basically told me to stop coaching tennis and apply my efforts to business.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you recall the name of the book?
It's
you can text it to me later.
I will. But it was an awesome book, and it totally changed my perspective, because I had a kind of like a entrepreneurial sort of aspect to my sort of way that I thought, and I was doing well coaching tennis, but I read this and I was like, I gotta kind of get out of coaching tennis if I want to get into business, and I think that I can have a greater impact. But anyways, I'm kind of going on tangents now, but I coached for a long time. I actually coached at the under 12 and under 14 national teams. I worked with a bunch of coaches there in Toronto and Montreal, and this was when I was in Calgary, Newfoundland. And then I opened up a restaurant in Newfoundland.
Wow, how did that go?
It was interesting. It was, they call it a racket when you open up, when you're trying to run a restaurant. And we had two. It was me and my brother-in-law, and it was challenging. It was fun and challenging, and it's one of those things that you do it, and I'm really grateful that I did it when I was young. And learned a lot from that, and then I ended up doing my CPA, which was kind of a long slug, but I got it, and that gave me a little bit more sort of credibility on some of the business side of things that I wanted to do, and then that's kind of how I ended up where I am right now.
Right. Tell us about Impact Radio. What is that?
Yeah, that's a company I work for here in Kelowna, and it's an incredible company started by a really entrepreneurial founder called Keith. He started it in his basement about 15 years ago. Wow. And he's turned this thing into just a massive company that employs probably 20 to 25 people. It's basically grown in Kelowna, and it's pretty low-key, under the radar kind of company. But it's so in my role there, I'm the chief financial officer.
What does the company do? Does it have a connection to radio broadcasting? No,
it's accessories for 2A radio communication.
Oh,
so
okay.
All the speaker microphones that you see on the shoulders of cops and firemen and this kind of thing. I mean, those are the easy things to kind of point out. That accessory, that's what we sell, and we sell it all over North America.
Right. So it's like communications for law enforcement and first responders.
But also you see these types of accessories in fast food chains, in malls, like clothing stores,
right?
Events,
right?
Ski patrol, this kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of different uses where people, they'd rather communicate via radio as opposed to cell phone.
Right. Yeah. And are most of your clients in Canada or the States, or
probably
a bit of both?
Probably 90% in the US.
Wow.
Just because it's a much larger market.
Yeah.
Proportionately the same in Canada.
How? What's your sense of the economy? Because I think it would be pretty good indicator. If the economy is growing, your sales would be growing, assuming everything else is going correctly in the company.
Yeah.
What's your sense of the American and Canadian economies right now?
I think it's been going well. The company's been doing well, and I think that it is. I think that it's a sign that the economy has been going well. I know there's a lot of volatility basically everywhere.
Yes.
But, all you can really do is keep your head down and control what you can control.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you're seeing like American clients, existing clients expanding. Saying, we need more equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're constantly, it's a razor blade business, right? Because all our products, they're not designed to last for 10 years, so people are constantly replacing them, and but they're also like it's good.
Yeah. And would you say your impression of the Canadian economy is about the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's doing well.
So there's kind of a perception, the blogs and so on that I read, that the American economy is much stronger than the Canadian economy right now.
Sure.
Certainly in real estate, I can see that right now. But every industry is a little different, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think the American economy it's awesome. I think it's one of the greatest economies in the world. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of growth there. There's a lot of very business entrepreneurial people in the U.S. and it's 10 times the size of Canada. So it's I think the U.S. is great.
Yeah. And do you guys manufacture these products or do you distribute them?
We manufacture and distribute. Yeah. So we work with our suppliers from various parts of the world, and we have an engineering department, and then we distribute these products all over the U.S. and Canada.
So you assemble here in Kelowna?
Light assembly. We can say light assembly, yeah.
So that's awesome. That's great. It's so cool to hear about businesses in Kelowna that you wouldn't know about. Because unless I bought one of your products, I probably never would have heard of it.
Right.
Right. So, and that's really cool that we're able to sell into the States and other parts of Canada and employ all these people here in this city.
Right.
So, is it a good place to have a business, to run a business?
Kelowna?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kelowna is great, and that's kind of what I tell everyone, because most people that you meet are actually not from Kelowna. So when you kind of get talking to them, everyone has an interesting reason as to why they came here, and a lot of the people who come here move here because they can and they just want to move here. So a lot of the time they bring their business with them, or they start a business here. And so they're normally very interesting people.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So the restaurant in Newfoundland, is that the same thing as the restaurant chain that you mentioned in your bio?
Yeah.
Okay. So it became multiple restaurants.
We opened up two restaurants that were, it was called Totally Greek.
Totally Greek. Yeah. Did you sell it, or what happened?
Well, it was, one of those things that we ran it, and it kind of ran its course, and we took it where we could take it. And then we, said, okay, well, this has been great. Yeah. Good learning experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you still play tennis?
Not very much. No, I kind of need to.
Yeah. You miss it.
Yeah. I miss the competing part of it. That's fun. And,
Do you still watch it? Do you watch the Wimbledon and
I watch
French Open and stuff?
Time. Yeah.
Who's your favorite right now?
Gotta go with Roger Federer.
Right.
Yeah, Rafa Nadal. Yeah, they're pretty incredible.
It's amazing to watch those guys. They make it look so easy. I'm a huge baseball fan, and it's always amazing how easy they make it look and how difficult it is to do some of those moves in real life, you know.
It's amazing how they can just stay there so consistently.
Yeah.
Day after day.
Federer's got to be in his 40s now.
No, he'll be 38 this year.
38. Okay,
yeah.
So I've been hearing about him since he was a teenager, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a couple of decades.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. And when you were growing up, who were your favorites? You must have been a fan of some of those older guys.
Yeah, probably, I think Pete Sampras.
Right.
Yeah, Pete Sampras kind of comes to mind. And then there was a couple of Zimbabwe guys who were really good in the rankings. And so those are the kind of players that I looked up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a tennis club in Kelowna.
There is. Yeah, global gym.
Yeah, they've got one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So out of all these things you've done, restaurants, you took Biomedical Science in university, and you took accounting. You're a CFO for a small to mid-size, I guess you'd call it a small company.
Yeah.
Tennis, coaching, and running restaurants. What do you think's your favorite out of all those things?
Well, I'd like to play more tennis for fun, but then I love being a CFO because I get to work with some really smart people, the operators of the company, and get to help them on the financial side of things. And then it's I get to look at a business and see how are we going to make this thing grow, and look at sort of some of the high level financial things that we could do. And sometimes what happens is company wants to the owner wants to sell their company, in which case they need somebody like a CFO to kind of assist with that.
Yeah, right. So Ryan, who would you like to nominate to come on the show?
I'd like to nominate this woman called Sarah Mammel.
All right. How do you spell her last name?
I think it's Mammel.
All right. And tell us a little bit about Sarah.
I've known her for a really long time, and I think she's got a ton of potential with whatever she kind of wants to do. She's very entrepreneurial, very creative, inspiring, and I think she's going to do great with what she's got going on.
Nice. Okay. Does she have a company?
She, I think she's working for a startup company right now.
Okay.
And so I'm sure I don't know a whole ton about it. She can give you all that info.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ryan. Really appreciate your time today and getting to know you a little bit better.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.